All right, there we go. We are recording now. So let me first again welcome everyone who's watching on this recording. Welcome everyone who's attended live. We are going to be talking today about the ISTE Student Standards, and there are 7 parts to the ISTE Student Standards, and we are looking at the first one today, which is being the empowered learner. We are If you have not signed in, if you could go to bit.ly/CMS Wednesday PD, I will share it in the chat one more time. There we go, and we'll get going. So again, looking at the ISTE standards, I kind of mentioned it just a bit ago, but they are it's a family of the ISTE standards all work together to help educators drive change inside of their classroom, and we've kind of been pushed off the cliff with change this year, and so you might be thinking like, oh no, I can't do any more change, I can't do any more transformation in my class. But really, the change has already happened for you, and now it's just time to make sure that you're catching up with the pedagogy involved with teaching, digitally. And so these standards are meant to provide clear guidelines and not, there's no fuzz around the edges. It's very clear what they think students need in order to be successful inside of the classroom. And there's actually 5 different standards that are made available. So there's student standards, there's teacher standards, there's administrators standards, there's coaches like myself standards for us, and then the computer science educator standards. So if you teach a STEM class or any technology class, any computer science class, then there's specific standards for you as well. I thought it would be best if we looked at the student standards first to see what is it that kids are expected to do to be successful inside of this digital environment. Okay, these standards are not meant to replace any standards that you have. In fact, they're meant to enhance and support what we already use. So everyone uses the Common Core. If you use the NGSS because you're in science, they go right along with them as well. But they're also meant to support frameworks, entire frameworks like the SAMR framework and the TPAC. And if you're not familiar with those, don't fret. Again, they are also in line with other initiatives like the National Education Technology Plan, the Future Ready, P21, and any more. And again, if you aren't familiar with that, that's okay. And the standards are used to guide from the ground all the way to the top. So curriculum mapping, what is it that we should be teaching inside of our class, is brought up here. And lesson design, how we should be building lessons, professional learning, how we should be teaching other teachers, how your school's technology plan, how the district is doing their technology plan, all the way up to teacher preparation, like going into the TEP whenever you're just getting your license. These things are meant to be discussed even before you step foot inside of a classroom. And of course, national policy as well. These standards were built in 2016, and again, there's 7 pieces to it, and they are meant to, again, basically prepare students. If they can do all of these things, then they will be a functioning technological student in today's age. And I think it's unlike the Common Core state standards, as an example. There isn't a standard for kindergarten and first grade and second grade and third grade. There are some, if you're interested more inside of those, of the tasks that need to be complete, Anita will be conducting her sessions will be kind of covering those in a little bit more detail. Ours are more the broad idea of what students should be expected to do. And that's going to look different, obviously with a kindergartner and with the 12th grade. So we kind of have to internalize all this and say, what is it that, how does this look in my class? What can I expect my students to do in order for them to be able to achieve this goal? And so we're not going to go into each one of these, but these were just a few things that I kind of went into yesterday. I was thinking about the teacher evaluations, and when you're getting graded and getting your walkthroughs and getting your evaluations, domain 1 through 4. What is it that by teaching with these standards in mind, how can you improve on your own scores? And so these were just a few of the areas that I think absolutely go hand in hand with the standards. And so and these are all 4s. If you can absolutely point to these things, then I think then you're meeting going above and beyond what that goal is, I guess. And so again, with all those things in mind, let's go ahead and look at standard 1, which is the empowered learner. The empowered learner standard requires students taking an active part in their education. So they are going to be the ones that, again, it's going to be very difficult for kindergartners first semester to do this. But I think if we build this idea of this is where we're headed with this, then they can meet this as well. And I had a kindergartner in our house just a couple years ago. I'm going to have a kindergartner in my house next year. There are absolutely things that they did, that my son did 2 years ago, that if we can tweak them just a little bit, we're absolutely meeting this standard. But anyways, these to fulfill this standard, students need to achieve competency in learning goals and demonstrate the competency in those learning goals. And so these standards are fulfilled when students set up individual learning goals. And I just, if you guys could come off, and show your face and give a thumbs up or thumbs down, or if you want to type in the chat, how many of you guys already do customized learning goals, or the students are trying to meet their goals, or they're tracking their goals as the year goes around? I can only see Aaron and Mandy right now, so you can give thumbs up, thumbs down. Again, type in the chat. Are your students already doing this to some degree? Well, Jamie, you got a rough one, yeah. But I know Jamie. I don't know if reading plus AR or anything like that is still being used. But I mean, tracking the reading that in previous years, I know was something that not necessarily was done through you necessarily, but you guided them in order to be able to do that. They knew that what their reading level is, as an example, and by using that reading level, you're helping them with those reading goals, being able to increase on those, right? And Mandy says, normally yes, and it is difficult with them not in person, and so we're going to kind of think about how we might be able to help with that today. But we'll talk about that just a little bit. Hopefully I'll give you a tool today that you can walk away with. It'll be good for you. Anyways, then we're gonna, then it says students get feedback on what they've done. And if we are not giving feedback, then I think we are failing our students. And I think if they are turning in work and they don't hear a word from us the entire year, whether it's a good job or whether it's the work that they need to do, then I think we're failing them. And I think that's the one thing that whether we're in person or whether we're online, we have to be able to achieve. But this talks about that. And then it lets them refine their own goals and their environment, if possible, to achieve the best results. And then finally, the students show that they understand the fundamental principles. We're going to talk more about these in depth. And so we'll get to that here in 1 second, okay? So again, I'd like to thank the people who are coming in a little bit late. I know that you guys had meetings this morning. I know it's not your fault that you're coming in late, but I thank you for getting out of one and coming right into another. All right, so the ISTE standard for this is actually, before I even do this, I'm going to show you the, I'm going to go to ISTE.org/standards. And yes, let me post the sign in one more time while that's coming up. It's into the chat. So here's where the standards, if you want to read through each of them, again, there are 5 different sections of standards. So we're going to be looking at the students section right now. And so I'm going to click get started here. And here are the student standards broken up into 7 pieces. And each one of these standards, then if I click on this, it also breaks this standard up into pieces, just like the Common Core would. You know, there's a 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and so forth. And so we are going to only talk about the empowered learner today, and exactly what that means, what that looks like, and what tools we could use inside of the classroom. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is, again, the empowered learner, and it says students leverage technology to take an active role in choosing, achieving, and demonstrating competency in their learning goals, informed by their learning sciences. So again, it's informed by the learning sciences. It's going to be hand in hand with Common Core, hand in hand with whatever curriculum you have, and we're going to kind of look at it that way. All right, so going back over here. So standard 1A, breaking it down, that first standard, it asks students to articulate. You know what? Instead of me reading it, there is a video to watch. So let me do this, and I'm going to have to switch presentations so that you can hear it. All right, those of you who have your camera on, once I click play, if you can hear it, if you can give me a thumbs up.
Students articulate and set personal learning goals, develop strategies leveraging technology to achieve them, and reflect on the learning process itself to improve learning outcomes.
We gave the children a choice of goals that they would like to know at the end of the lesson. We also asked them to choose the things that they felt that they knew now, whether it was balancing the equation or just getting the question right.
One card is like if you could do it or not, and the other one is like if you want to set a goal. Miss Yadigar has been teaching us how to teach a classmate. There's a lot of kids that don't know how to do it. So like if the other kids know, they could help other kids.
For the follow-up to this lesson, we would have a reflection. What do you think you learned? I want them to share their knowledge with others, but also be able to choose the goals. So then they know how they're doing throughout the week.
All right, so it's taking a look at a few things. It's setting the personal learning goals. And so I wanted to kind of open this up. And so I kind of went this way with it. I think standard 1A kind of alludes to this. It's setting those personal learning goals, but then part of that is tracking those personal learning goals. So my question, and we're going to break out into some breakout rooms for this. So I need to break. Oh, it lost the. Oh no, it didn't. Okay, Mandy, you're elementary. Michelle, you're elementary. Renee, you're elementary. Regina, are you back with us? Are you elementary or high school? Okay, does anyone know if Regina Ramirez is elementary or high school? She's gonna get thrown in high school because high school needs more. And I'm going to join high school as well. We're going to break out for 2 minutes, and I want you to discuss these things inside of your breakout room. How do you currently track data? How do your students track data? So how do you track data for your students? How do your students track data? And the question might be better asked in a normal year. How do you do this in a normal year if you just don't track data this year, if your students are not tracking data this year? And then the question I also want to talk about is what data should we even be tracking? And so I'm going to do this breakout room. Again, we're going to go for a couple minutes, so not too much time to talk about too much other stuff. And I'm going to send you there right now. All right, welcome back, everyone. Still got a few people in the breakout rooms. All right, I think we're mostly all back. So I know we had a good conversation about the data that's being tracked, about thinking about, in regards to these standards, what how can we keep those goals in mind in a structured curriculum, and what does that look like? You know, how can we expand on these goals, or keep a focus on them whenever it's so focused on one or two things. But I think in general, you know, you're never going to go wrong if you're tracking data, whatever data that looks like. And but you do need a little bit of help along the way, right? So so how can technology help us track this? Now, this might not work for everyone, but I'm going to go ahead and copy this link. I am not sharing the right thing. All right. All right, so I'm going to share inside of the chat what I'm going to be working with, and I put edit, so don't click on that first one. I'm sorry. Let me do this again and change that to a copy. All right, go ahead and click on that second one. If you are watching this as a recording, then I will link this this data into the chat, or in below the video probably. So when you click on that link, it's going to ask you to copy the document, and so you're going to click make a copy. And what I've done is put together just a little template. I'm going to show you how to create something like this very, very quickly, and we'll kind of go from there. So I have 3 different tabs on the bottom here. The first one, I'm just going to kind of walk you through what I did and how I did it. The second tab right here at the bottom, am I not sharing? Oh, well, there you go. Let's try that again. All right. So this first tab, sorry about that, is I'm going to walk you through just making something really quickly on how to share, visualize some data in a better way. This first one right here, though, is a template that you might be able to share with your students, and it shows, you know, here's one goal, here's what they did, here was the goal, how did it track over time, and you can see the graphs that go along with it. But if you also have multi-goals, for example, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, kind of like the ANET testing, then I built this out as well, just to kind of show you how it's done. So how did I build these? So the first thing, I'm going to again come back over to this first one, and I just labeled this by month. And if you don't have it by month, if you have a beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year data, or if or whatever you do in your class, I mean, this might be weekly for you, then you just label that across the top. And then I just labeled what it was that I was tracking. So the first thing, what is their goal? So I set their goals up, random numbers. I don't have access to look at necessarily exactly, and it's going to change, right? A specific number that each student wants to hit for each particular grade that they're in, and depending on the time of the year, all these numbers might change. But I just went ahead and put in some numbers here, both for reading and for math. And for example, if in that first test they got a 90, and maybe on the second test they got a 102, and then the third test they got a 120, I'm going to go ahead and so we can compare these just by looking at them, but that's not a good visual, especially for kids a lot of times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of these this information, and I'm going to come up here and click Insert, and I'm going to insert a chart. And it's going to graph it for me. And now I see here is my result, and here is my goal. And if I want to, these look kind of to be out of order. On the right-hand side, it gives me a chance to change the setup. So maybe instead of their information, I want their information to be the bars, and I want the goal to be the line. I'm going to come over here and change this to result, and I'm going to change this to goal. And now I can see here's my goal. Are they meeting that goal? And this is something that they can save into their drive as a picture. They can create a PowerPoint, kind of like I was sharing in our breakout room that one of the best things that we did whenever I was teaching, we did this the last couple of years, was the students created slideshows to show their own student scores. And they presented that information to their parents. And so this is something that could easily be saved as a picture, inserted into a slides, and now they have data right there that actually updates automatically if you insert it right, that would then show their parents, exactly how they're doing inside of that. Now, again, I've shared this as a goal here on the second tab. I've created this for you. So I believe this is the math score. I think these math scores are correct for like 4th grade. So if you are a 4th grade math teacher, like you're set with these goals. These are the various. No, I think that's the next one over. So don't quote me on this one. But if I delete these numbers, then everything remains there, and I can put the numbers in as we go. So maybe they went down. And then they, shot up for the next one. And so as I type that in, this information is changing. And I could do the same thing for the reading goals as well. So this one is completely set up for you. It's a template that you could send out to your students if you wanted to. And then as well as that, again, we have the multi-goal. So this is the one that is correct. I believe if you're a 4th grade math teacher, the levels right here are absolutely correct. So lucky you. You would just have to go in and change the student scores, or better yet, the students could change their own scores. And so now we have these lines represent the different levels, and depending on where they are, if I were to change their score here, if they actually got a 425 on the first test, then it drops this. I have okay, that shows bad because of the way that I set that up. I'm sorry. Let me try that again. All right, if they get a 425, then it drops that one. All the others remain, wherever they were. And you would just need to go in, or the students would go in and type in this information as they complete their tests. So they can see if they're below this first line, they didn't reach level 2 yet, they're still level 1. If they're above this top line, they made it to level 5, and so forth. Feel free, again, to make a copy on this. And better yet, share it as an assignment to your kids so that it makes a copy for them. Maybe don't share the whole, pick whichever one you want to share. Change the numbers first to make sure that the numbers match whatever you teach. But share it with them once the numbers are correct and it looks for whatever you want it to look like, so that they can keep track of their scores, and all they have to do is put in the numbers. Now they're keeping track, and so forth. So again, this is how we can use some technology to get this going. If you're watching this live and you didn't get to play around with this, or if you are like, hey, this is a really great idea, but I still don't know exactly how to do it, make an appointment with either me or Anita, and we would be absolutely thrilled to be able to help you get this set up inside of your class. Okay, but here's a starter for you. All right, so heading back. We got a few extra things to do. I knew we were going to spend more time on that one than anything else. But that was standard 1. So now we're going to take a look at standard 1. I guess that was standard 1A. Now we're going to take a look at standard 1B. So we have another quick little video to watch. And it keeps kicking me off from presenting, and I don't know why. Here we go.
Build networks and customize their learning environments in ways that support the learning process.
So I made 6 units, and every unit has a list of tasks that the students do, and I really just let them pick. So they went through, I explained all the choices to them, and so students got to pick their own groups and their own project. And some groups have a lot more kids, some groups are smaller. It really was completely their choice. So that's what you see going on here. So some kids are doing engineering where they're building roller coasters. Some students are learning about 3D printing and actually making things.
My favorite part about it is that it feels like you're an adult and like you're applying to different jobs. Like once you apply and you get accepted, you just get to go to your favorite job.
I created a task sheet. At the end of each task, they have to meet with me and we have like a little one-on-one conference and they show me what they've done. I can make sure that they're focused and learning and having the experiences that they're supposed to be having.
All right, so the first thing I'm going to say is, you know, that class might look a lot different than your class, right? And that's okay. If you teach a STEM class, or if you teach Smart Lab, then you're like, yeah, I do all these things already. Like that's my class right there. But I think a lot of people do these, the more general idea of what this looks like is actually done by a lot of people in the district, and it might look differently. It might look like centers where the kids rotate and they don't necessarily apply and do all that stuff, but they are learning different things at different times, and they are taking ownership. They are being empowered by the learning that's taking place. I was not great at this. I liked having a more structured classroom, and I think that is common with high school, you know, middle school and up teachers. But one thing that I did have success with, this was again in my own class. One thing I did have success with was creating menus and letting the way that the kids learn change just a little bit, even if it's just a little bit. If they can take a little bit of ownership in that, I think it was something that was definitely better for them than had I not done that. But I think what also kind of sparks this one is seeking the feedback. And again, I keep getting everything keeps going away from me. I'm no longer sharing again. But it is seeking that feedback, and so the question I think that we're going to take a look at right now is, what kind of feedback are you providing? And so I just kind of want to do a call out with some of these things. And I have to share this, and I wish Julie was here because she worked so hard on it. But I'm going to share a document that Julie Klein created, and I believe she is a librarian as well. And so one of the lessons that she was doing for the LAMPS menu at the elementary was working on not just learning who these people are, but what they look like, and just a deeper understanding of who they are. And when you're talking about feedback can be really done in two different ways: immediate feedback or delayed feedback. And she wanted to create something that had immediate feedback built into it. So, so do you have any idea who these famous people are? Click on the name of the picture. Of who you think the picture is, and if you're wrong, it will say incorrect. And so who is this person? Martin Luther King, right? So we look through here, and here's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and if they got it right, it says awesome job, now on to the next person. So here's another picture, and let's say I don't know who this person is. Let's say I think it's Mrs. Allen, whoever that is, probably a teacher at Sunset. But if they click on Mrs. Allen, then they can see right away that it's incorrect. So she was able to make this using Google Slides to provide immediate feedback. And so I'm just curious, what are some other ways that that you can get immediate feedback? Inside of the video, there was Desmos. They used Desmos in order for the kids to answer the questions and being able to see whether or not they got the answer right or wrong. So I'm just curious, what are some immediate feedback tools that you use? You can either share it out or type it into the chat. Google Forms. Google Forms especially will give you the answer right away, but you can also build it a little bit even deeper by using response validation. Response validation makes it to where they cannot input their answer unless it's correct, if you want to build it like that. Or if you want to get more specific, like if you tell them you must use complete sentences, then you can use response feedback to say that the answer has to be at least to, like, you know, how many ever characters a complete sentence would start with, you know. And so if it's a question that probably could be answered yes or no, but you want a complete answer, if you put response validation and make sure that they put like 50 characters, then if they put yes, it will not let them type in an answer. So you can use Google Forms in that way. Edpuzzle is a great use of that, and I believe the high school was working with Edpuzzle a lot, depending on who the teachers are and whether they kind of jumped on board on that. But I know that we got quite a few questions about that from Edpuzzle, and if I'm correct, that's where you watch a video and you kind of do some. Am I correct with that, Mandy?
Yes. So you can choose any video, whether it's your own teaching, a pre-made video from like TED Talks, YouTube, and you can customize an assessment that'll pause the video and it's ongoing feedback to make sure they're engaged, but then they also check for their own learning as they watch those.
Thank you. Another that I'm thinking of is Khan Academy. When you watch the videos, there's questions that can come up afterwards, and you have to be able to get those right in order to move on. And some of the times they're multiple choice, some of the times they're, if they're math, you have to put in a certain answer. But those are examples of some immediate feedback. As a math teacher, it's hard for me not to use immediate feedback almost all the time once you start using it, because the student would, I guess, if given the two options, would I rather my student continually get something wrong over the course of an entire lesson and then me try to correct the mistakes that they had already done, or would I rather them be told literally right away whenever they answer the first one, you're not doing it right? I built entire, from scratch using my very small coding ability. I built a program where I was able to throw in a bunch of questions and they answered them. And in order to complete it, they had to get 5 correct in a row. And if they missed one, then it got sent back to 0, and then they had to keep going. And the kids absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it because it provided that feedback. I had to answer more questions when they were doing that than I ever had to answer before, because they realized that they were doing the question wrong, and they needed to figure out how to do it right. So immediate feedback is going to be the way to go. That's not to say delayed feedback is bad. And so just as an example, you can send a Gmail message to your students. What are some other ways that you can provide delayed feedback to your students on what they're doing?
Private comments on their Google assignments or comments on their Google Docs.
Well, there's two different things, right? There's private comments on the assignments. And then there are just using the comments. It's going to be behind my head there. Comments on a Google Doc, and those are done in 2 different ways. I mean, you're still doing the same thing. You're providing a comment, but they are done in 2 different ways. And as an example, if I wanted to make a comment on this, I believe I can make a comment inside of Slides. Yep. I can come over here and provide a comment and write it off over to the side. And that's going to be an inline comment. It's going to show exactly what they were doing. And here's the comment that goes along with that. As where a private comment on an assignment inside of Google Classroom is going to be more of a general, here's the assignment, and I can make a comment on the assignment. So I think those two are 2 different things. And Aaron, I think you're talking delayed feedback on assignments they submit. So even just like grading assignments, that is feedback, right? You're providing them, you're saying you got this many correct, or this is the percentage you get. That is feedback. Are there anything else?
What I'm saying, so when I guess what I want to say is when they write in class, and they do, you can immediately respond to what they're writing, okay, in writing, using the tools.
Yeah.
And that can be effective. Some kids get a little freaked out by it.
Sure. Well, and especially if you're following along with Block C and you're keeping an eye on what they're doing, that can be even more of that. Yeah, like you said, it could take a comment that would have been delayed, where you're just making a comment on them and you're turning it into immediate because you're being a little bit more attentive to what they're doing while they're going along. Do I capture that correctly?
No, because I find it hard in Block C to actually do this as quickly as I want.
Sure.
So I get them all on the same Google Doc, and then I can actually get in there and edit their sentences. If I see a red wavy line, I will click on that red, and the kid's looking, and they're going to
see what you're saying.
And so we're all using those tools together in real time.
Yeah, and while we're talking about that, let me open up a Google Doc. One of the things that you can do instead of correcting the sentence form necessarily exactly correcting is come up here and change it from editing to suggesting. And so now they have to take a look at what suggestions happen. So if I just say this is a sentence, I need to fix it. So I made a mistake in here. You can come in and make a suggestion where you delete this, but it doesn't actually delete it. And whenever they're writing it, they see, oh, I need to do that. I need to delete this, but it's still them having to do that. So, so I love the suggestion tool inside of Google Docs as well. So, but thank you for that, for clarifying that. Okay, I'm looking to see if there was anything else I had written about this. I guess, and I don't want to leave this out. I need to copy these over, so some of the stuff's gone. But one of my questions is: does your adopted curriculum come with the tools that you need to meet this this standard? Does your adopted curriculum allow you to have immediate feedback? Does it allow you to have delayed feedback, or do you have to go above and beyond that? And so you can answer that if you know because you've looked, but it might just be a task for you whenever you finish here is to look at your adopted curriculum and figure out, does it have the tools or does it not? What am I going to have to do in order to help with that? So let me copy this over. I'll make that pretty before we get it sent out to you. All right, so did I skip ahead one? I think I skipped ahead one. Oh, see, you guys, this is why we don't have nice things. I'm going to play a video, and it's what we were actually talking about because I skipped ahead. We were talking about feedback whenever the video didn't even go into feedback. So let me present this. It was a test for you guys to see if you were paying attention, and you weren't. That's what it was. So let's see. We already watched 1B, so let's take a look at 1C. All right, let me.
Students use technology to seek feedback that informs and improves their practice, and to demonstrate their learning in a variety of ways.
We're studying slope-intercept form today, and we're using a game to help formulate that concept better. They have already learned how to write lines, but they're practicing it more, and they were seeing how to change the slope in the y-intercept, how that affects this line going through so they could safely land the plane. You can't have too much error on something like that. So again, having them be precise, again, another mathematical practice standard. So I think it gives them immediate feedback as they're doing it because they see when they press submit, they can see the line and they can see with the colors if they got it and it was green, and if they didn't, it was red.
If you get it wrong, it'll say reset, and then it'll reset you, and then you can try again. For me, it reassures me that I can make a number of mistakes and I'll still learn. We have a visual representation and we can experiment with other kids in the class, which will also help develop our knowledge with slopes.
Whereas for me, it was giving me feedback. It documented all their responses from the times before with everyone else's, because I could see like, okay, this one, she didn't get this one right, or she got that one right, or I can come and then I can group them together. And so I can give them feedback wherever they're at.
All right, so again, I apologize for doing those out of order, completely probably confusing everyone. That's what we had been talking about, was seeking feedback to improve their practice. So we talked about immediate feedback versus delayed feedback. So going back to building the learning environment, I don't want to just gloss over this. First of all, I said, does this classroom remind you of anything? And it reminds me of a STEM class, of course, because they were showing a STEM class. But it reminds me a lot of elementary classes. And again, we're going back to the previous video of using centers. And then my question for everyone was, how much of this do you do in your classroom? Do you use centers? Do you, like me, do you use learning menus? How do you achieve the goal inside of your classroom? And then does it change based on grade level? What we were going to do as an activity, which we wouldn't have had time to do anyways, we were going to get out our curriculum and see how can we meet this standard with what you've been given, whether it's in an online setting or a traditional setting. And so so instead of going through that, because I only have you for about 7 more minutes, and I want to make sure that we get through each of this. This might be again a task for you to complete, is to get out your curriculum and see how is it that I can meet this environment change. And you might be thinking about next year. You might be saying, how can I build this for next year? And maybe not necessarily in the online environment, because really the only tool you have for this right now is breakout rooms. And maybe you don't even feel comfortable with breakout rooms because, you know, for a variety of reasons that some teachers have said that. But I want it to be something at the top of your mind of how can I meet this standard in my classroom. And it might be more of a challenge again for people like me or high school or teachers that like the structure better, but I think it's something we need to push for. So I apologize for doing those out of order, completely confusing everyone. We took a look at immediate feedback, which is what that previous video was, but we do have one more video to watch, and that is standard 1D. So let's share this.
Students understand the fundamental concepts of technology operations, demonstrate the ability to choose, use, and troubleshoot current technologies, and are able to transfer their knowledge to explore emerging technologies.
The students are doing a computer repair unit. Everything that you can remove from the computer, they can fix it. They can repair screens, keyboards, and keys. They've learned how to repair DC jacks for charging, and then even the battery. So there's really good vocational skills, learning skills that they can take with them in the future to actually do actual repair.
I feel like it's a good opportunity because now it doesn't mean like, oh, only adults can do it. Us kids, we got an opportunity to do it. It helps improve my skills because when I grow up, I want to like make computers and fix them. It's fun to do.
I explained to them that eventually I'm going to hand them a computer that we don't know what's wrong with it, and you're going to figure it out and you're going to fix it. And the coolest thing is they do. They figure it out.
So first of all, I will say what a cool classroom. From what I understand, just from looking at the setup of the classroom, that is not just like an ELA class or a math class where they also fix computers. The class, that class is specifically designed to be a class to fix computers. Okay, so I'll start with the fact that we don't want you or your students taking apart computers in your class yet. Maybe that is something that we want to do in the future, because you break it, you buy it, right? And so we don't want computers. Just hey, Steven said it's okay to do this. I'm not giving you permission to take apart computers in your class, but that does not mean that we can't do something with this standard. And so what I wanted to do, and we only have just a few minutes left, this might depend on grade level, this might depend on a lot of things, but I wanted to say, just share out, what are some common problems, technology problems that you come across inside of your classroom right now? So if you could share those out.
A lot of kids are saying their microphones aren't working, and I don't get that.
Yes, I have heard that a lot, and I wonder how much of it is their microphone actually not working and them just not wanting to be on the microphone. But yes,
or they could just be on a cell phone and not really telling me that they're not on a Chromebook.
Could be that as well.
There's bad internet; they just drop off.
Okay.
Anytime I'm giving assignments that are not in Cami, just like their basic knowledge of how to put a text box back when they delete it, they mess with a setting, how to fix it back, how to copy and paste, just basic things that make their life easier.
Maybe finding their docs, finding their stuff.
Yeah. Anything else?
We put things in Google Class and then it's just not there. And then we have to re-put it in. And then they say, okay, we found it.
I've had I'm sorry, just Springboard login problems, but I'm not really sure, you know, we can troubleshoot those beyond the, but you know, they don't necessarily follow the instructions carefully, and that creates problems.
And so that's kind of where I was wanting to go with it, just a little bit. Again, I know people are running out of time. We only got about a minute left. Again, we don't want you to fix computers, but and we don't want the kids to fix computers, maybe not yet. And maybe it is something that we do in the future. But what we do want, whether it's kindergarten or whether it's 12th grade, we want them to know enough about what they're being asked to do technologically to be able to, you know, troubleshoot some of those things. And you know, one of the things that I immediately thought of was maybe not stuff that you have to put in a microphone not working. That's a fix-it problem. You know, the students won't be able to do that. But things like copying and pasting, quality of life improvements. If they delete something in their doc, how do they get it back so that they don't get frustrated by having to type it all over again or do those things? And I think that it would we would be doing a service to our students if we knew some of those workarounds, and you might not know them right away, and you might have to reach out to someone like me, someone like Anita, someone like your tech, saying, man, what are some quality of life improvements that I can use, or so forth and so on. I think that's a good place to be. And I think if your students at the end of, or not at the end, but, within the first few weeks, even if they don't know how to do the material, if they know how to work around some common issues that that they are going to have happen to them, I think they're going to be in a good spot. And just like when we teach math, we don't want to take the pencil out of their hand and do it for them. We also don't want to take that Chromebook out of their hand and just fix it for them so that they don't know what happened along the way in order to get it fixed. And so I'm already talking over. So this was one more time. If you would like to take a look a little bit more at the standards, you can go to ISTE.org/standards. We're going to be doing these on a weekly, coming up each week. So we looked at lesson 1 today, which was empowered students. We're going to be taking a look at next week, which is going to be a completely different standard. So I hope you guys will join us next week. I'm going to put the sign in into the chat one more time. And I'm going to be hanging around a few minutes to answer any questions that you have, or if you wanted to add something that you felt didn't get added along the way. So again, thank you for your time today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. This was a really good training. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Brenda.